What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy, what day is it? Wednesday, everybody. It's been a really rough last 24 hours. There was a really bad storm here in Tijuana, and we were without electricity in several parts of the city for at least 24 hours. So I wasn't able to get any power in any place that I went to, really. I really don't like it when there's a lot of news that come out and I can't report on them. I'm a journalist and a newsbreaker by nature. That's what I trained. But what the hell? I got a little more time with the missus. I do got to tell you guys, this Friday, I signed my marriage papers. So it's going to be official. I was not married. I was really engaged, but I already called her my wife because she is my wife. So that's going to be exciting. The This weekend is going to be really small. We don't want anything that big, really. I'll send you an update on whatever goes down. But while I wasn't having any chance to report on stuff, I stumbled upon someone that I've been meaning to hear from for a while. That someone goes by the name of Merciful Martin on X. He used to be called Lightbringer. The first time I heard of him, he was part of that old gods conversation with Steve. I'm going to leave a link in the description to that episode. It is a Tom DeLonge episode, but also I talk about Steve. And Lightbringer was one of the people that was one of his acquaintances. And he particularly called my attention because he spoke about something that I've been trying to articulate for a while now. I think that the human race is at a very significant point in their evolutionary timeline. I think that right now there is an opportunity for this civilization to keep moving forward instead of a reset. Because a reset is something that we should all keep in mind at all times. The powers that be, the people that control the world, control the resources, and they have right now the last say because the rest of the human population doesn't realize that they actually have a lot of power. And when Martin came out last year with Steve, I found his message pretty compelling and it rang a bell with me in many aspects because if you guys have been following my journey, I used to be a psychedelic experiencer and then I've been experiencing really weird stuff since I was a preteen, stuff that I, for a long time, thought they were just hallucinations. For a long time, I thought I was just going mad, to be honest with you. I went through a lot of ego deaths. I went through a near death experience. And for some reason, I feel like there was a certain moment when I don't know if I call it destiny or fate decided that I had to do this. And I know this sounds very ethereal, and I know that the very scientific people are gonna come at me and criticize me for whatever reason. But there was a moment there when, after the near death experience, when I realized that I wanted to do something better with my life in general. And there was a moment when I started reading the literature of the paranormal and phenomena in general, when I realized that what was happening to me was psi phenomena. And it took me a while to come to grips with it, mainly because I grew up in a different type of household, a more conservative at the beginning, and then it went through like a transition thanks to my mother, who is still a student of life. And she basically taught me everything I know about these topics. And she gave me the courage to try and keep seeking for truth in general. and keep seeking what the nature of reality is. When I realized that what was happening to me was really psi phenomena, that's when I decided to create Psicoactivo. This happened on July 21st, 2021. But the idea came a few months earlier than that. It happened during a flight when I was coming back from Guadalajara, which is where I was born. My hometown is Tijuana. That's where I grew up. But where I was born is Guadalajara, Jalisco. I was coming back from a trip during a flight. And that's when I came up with the idea of the podcast. And here we are. And along the way, I found out that psi phenomena is intimately linked to the UFO phenomenon. It took me a while to reconcile that, if I'm honest with you. But when I did, I realized that I already had a lot of learning curve when it comes to psi phenomena because of my mother, because of what she taught me. And when I heard that Lightbringer was talking about these topics and these things and the way in which human civilization is at a breaking point right now, it's ride or die, it's like, and we can all feel it. I know you can. That's when I realized that what I was doing had a meaning. It wasn't just me talking about my psychedelic experiences at first. It was bound to evolve into whatever this is right now, and it's going to keep evolving into I don't know what. But I was really happy to see him talking about these topics. And then after he disappeared for a while, he reappeared in the Skywatcher episode 1, I think it was, when he was introduced. And he's not called Lightbringer in this one. His real name is Jordan Jozak. And this is, if you guys don't remember, this is how he presented himself to the world. So here's Jordan.
Jordan, I really appreciate you joining us here today.
Alex, it's an honor to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
So maybe let's start by sharing a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So most recently, I worked in the space technology space, a little bit of data science, ultimately taking different imagery types and trying to solve solutions for the utility industry.
I'm curious, by chance, do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
I am certain of that.
You're certain? How certain are you?
100%.
I mean, Jordan, that's a pretty bold statement. Where does that certainty come from?
Certainty comes from my firsthand experience in what I term a psionic exploitation program between the years of 2005 and 2010, where I interfaced and worked with non-human intelligence and things like UAP directly.
I mean, Jordan, that is an incredible claim. For the viewer at home, what were you doing in this program on a daily basis?
Yeah, so this would look at like things that many people would consider woo-woo-y, right? Like astral projection or meditation. But ultimately, what we were really investigating was how far could we stretch the bounds of human consciousness. Beyond that, how could we get human consciousness to interface directly with things like recovered materials and recovered crafts? What I can tell you from the craft and some of the different projects that we worked on directly is ultimately that they interfaced with us. What I mean by that is my consciousness could project into these craft and recovered materials and then access a suite of commands, essentially capabilities to do various things, including piloting. But ultimately, the story is not about piloting some UAP with your mind. This story is much more about what is consciousness?
Yeah.
Why can we interface with these things?
Do you have material that supports these claims?
I have tons of material, linearly, autobiographical records that will support my claims.
So when I heard that the first time, I realized that there was a potential connection to the main story that I've been following for almost 3 years now. That story is Dr. Jacobo Greenberg and his work and his disappearance. And To this day, I think that if the psionic program exists within the legacy program, it could be that Dr. Greenberg was one of those scientists that led some of these programs and trained some of these kids, because there is a precedent for him. He used to train kids in Mexico in extraocular vision, he called it. And I know that this has been allegedly debunked many times, and debunkers are going to go at it. They always go straight to the jugular when it comes to these topics. But the truth of the matter is that Jacobo knew how to do this. And there is still to this day a school that teaches this in their course in Mexico and in many other schools in the world. It's not just Mexico. This is a worldwide phenomenon. And Jacobo already had a bunch of training in this. Jacobo also developed the synergic theory, which states that human brains have the capability to make both the lattice of reality and the neuronal field interact. And as a result, that is what creates the experience of reality, at least for humans. I don't know if the other living beings have that capability as well, but that's in a nutshell what the synergic theory is. Jacobo didn't just train kids, he also studied Mexican shamans in the most detailed fashion, I think, ever than anyone else. He was a psychophysiologist at University of UNAM. When he started studying shamans, the one shaman that he decided to study first was a healer named Pachita. And she was the one that made his entire paradigm completely turn over its head, because he grew up as a scientist. He learned science first. And when he saw stuff that his understanding of science could not explain, that's when he started trying to think outside of the box a little bit more. Because what he saw allegedly, and that's something that he writes in his book, Alejandro Jodorowsky writes it in his book as well. Salvador Freixedo is another parapsychologist from Spain who writes about Pachita because they went to visit her. Dr. Andrea Pujarich also visited Pachita. As I understand, there is a manuscript that Pujarich wrote that we're going to get to read very soon about Pachita when he went to visit her. There's a lot of people that have scientific credentials and clerical credentials, because Freixedo was also a Jesuit monk before he became a parapsychologist, who all agree that what they saw is something that their understanding of reality cannot explain. Pachita allegedly did and performed what she deemed spiritual surgeries. She allegedly made transplants of any organ you can think of a spinal cord, of whatever you can think of. And she only used just like a plain knife to do this, allegedly. And Jacobo was there because the initial thought that he had was that he wanted to debunk Pachita with his scientific knowledge. He wanted to just be there for a couple of weeks. But what he saw made him stay 2 years. So I don't know. When he disappeared in 94, he had already been getting propositions and offers from different universities in the US and from people from 3-letter agencies who wanted him to work with them. He always declined. And then in 1994, he disappeared. So when Jordan came out as a psionic asset for Skywatcher, and he talked about the legacy program and the psionic program, I realized that there was a possibility Jacobo was one of the scientists who was part of this program. I have no way to prove this yet. I have been speaking to Jordan a little bit. He didn't know about Jacobo, and he is willing to investigate this alongside myself because he was allegedly part of this program, and we are going to keep talking about this. Hopefully, I can have him on the show at a certain point. But for now, I'm going to leave you with the video that he posted on his X account, and I asked permission to share the entire video with you guys so you can see what he's about and what he's trying to do and the reason he came forward publicly right now. So here is Jordan Jozak, Merciful Martin on X, telling you his journey and about the legacy program, the part that he knows. So here it is.
Hi, my name's Jordan Jozak. You may know me from the recent Skywatcher series, where myself, among other folks like Jacob Barber, gave testimony about our experiences in covert and compartmented programs. That was last year, August. I gave testimony in that video where I described my first-hand experience with non-human intelligence and the affiliated technology. Today is October 13th, 2025, and to date, no one from Congress has contacted me. So, I figured I'd like to tell my own story this time. Instead of going on big shows where everyone's trying to control a narrative and present their own flavor of the same pie, I think it's time we have an honest conversation about what's actually going on. And the truth is, it's not easy to explain. In fact, I'm not even sure if I know how to exactly explain it, but here's the basics. If you watch the Skywatcher series, you saw me claim that I was in a psionic exploitation program between the years of 2005 and 2010. And if you're looking at me and trying to do the age comparison, you're right. I'm age 30. In 2005 and 2010, I was ages 9 and 14. This is one of the difficult things that we're going to have to navigate if we desire disclosure as a nation. There are very uncomfortable truths regarding the past programmatic nature of the program itself. And quite frankly, I didn't ask for any of this. I was scouted within the school system through the Gifted and Talented Education Network. In 2005, I began a relationship with a psychologist who would come into my school district, and I would begin to become separated from the rest of my classmates. This continued on, our relationship when my parents were not fully given the truth of why I was seeing a psychologist or why the school district was recommending that I would see them after hours. But this relationship progressed for a few years. What was happening during that time was I was progressing through the outer areas of a psionic recruitment program that, to my knowledge, has been running throughout the United States for some time. You don't have to look too far to look back at Gifted and Talented Education Initiatives, as well as TAG, Talented and Gifted Initiatives as well. The problem being is not all of that is bad. However, for those that are familiar with how intelligence operations work, they work covertly. They work through channels that carry plausible deniability. And that was the nature of what happened to me. In 2008, I was progressing and excelling within the program to the point that they removed me from the public school district. And for 2 years, I attended school at what seemed like a very normal, lockdown, scan in, scan out, off-site facility. My parents were just told that I was going there to get better. I just needed mental health treatment. But what they didn't know is that facility was a cover for a much larger program where I interacted with non-human intelligence and its associated technology. I interacted with a piece of technology known as Sylvia within the program. And that's where things get very difficult. Up to this point, the conversation within the Disclosure Network has been solely focused on the nuts and bolts characteristics, the UAP, the tech, the flying saucers, and everything else imaginable in the materialistic sense. But there's a big missing link in how we navigate this, and that missing link is consciousness. We need to have an honest conversation about ourselves. Psi has been a missing link not only within science, physics, but just our overall advancement and evolution as a human species. Components of the program are well familiar that consciousness is non-local. And what does that mean? Well, it means that our essence is more than our body. We can have out-of-body experiences, and we can perhaps imprint or even affect the reality around us. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you are very much in control of your own reality. Your thoughts do become things, and the whole age-old addict of The Secret or manifestation is, in my mind, things that are very true, and things that I was trained on to exploit within the program. See, we weren't doing things like getting in a secret spaceship or going to underground bases and meeting with aliens. We were using consciousness technology that engaged with us, and they needed very special kids to do that. Within the program for those 2 years, I worked with autistic non-speakers, and the abuses that I saw committed were disgusting. While I was a kid who had a voice and could use my body, I could kick and scream when the experiments were getting bad. But for those that were non-speaking or non-moving, they had a much more difficult time. And there needs to be a serious investigation into this programmatic nature. Now, what is the program? Well, that's a whole other problem. Most people understand this component of a legacy program, which in my mind is exactly how the beginning started. However, more recently, every single agency has got their hands on either some aspect of this research or some aspect of the program itself. While everyone would love to think that there's a centralized, beautiful little board that has all this compartmented and they're just not releasing it, the real truth is shit is so much more messy than that. Let me tell you. I don't know exactly what the pathway forward is here, but we need to really rapidly scale up our research into consciousness. And I think right now AI is providing us the ability to take a rapid step. We don't need our government to tell us what we already know. The truth is out there, and there's many individuals like myself who are trying to find their voice to bring this to others. None of us want problems. None of us want to burn down the system, and none of us are sitting here on a soapbox telling you that you should feel bad for me. In fact, my story is much different. I did go through hell. Many other kids went through hell, and we worked firsthand in these programs at a young age. From that point forward, you either went further into the DoD establishment or you stayed on the outside, which I did for many years. I stand here today to take a stand, to challenge all of us to think differently. And that's why I'm launching 3 crowd-funded projects: Night Under the Stars, the Telepathy Center, and Legacy Voices. I first want to talk about Legacy Voices. There are many people like myself with first-hand knowledge, psi protocols, first-hand experiencers, and a whole untapped community of experiencers, of people experiencing things like direct contact or altered states of consciousness with shared messages and synchronicities. It's clear that there's something like an awakening potentially happening to human consciousness, and we're still focused on drones. What if all of this is a wake-up call for us to think differently and to think bigger? So that 3-part process, Legacy Voices, is designed to give voices to those that have credible information and first-hand experiences. We want to leverage AI to do pattern recognition, to bring whatever intuitive information can be gleaned that could potentially further resources as we begin to look into the aspects of the phenomenon. It's not just consciousness, it's not just nuts and bolts, and frankly, it's not just plasma. It's all of it at the same time. I think we're potentially evolving. Maybe we're at the techno-singularity. Maybe that this is a dimensional shift in nature that we are experiencing, and all of this is like a mismatch of thoughts as we navigate this bumpy terrain together. However, one thing's incredibly important to me: that these voices get out, that those that have information can get their testimony to researchers. And AI is the only way to do that. So we're proposing an online platform that uses webcam capabilities to scale and ingest testimonies from both experiencers as well as those that have first-hand information and feel comfortable sharing that. more to find on the links below. Beyond that, I'm launching an experiential series called Night Under the Stars, where you can come and experience exactly what happened at Esalen Institute last year, where Ross Coulthard gave testimony of my experience where blue orbs came and interacted with us. I'm not doing this to further UAP research. I'm doing this to further research within ourselves. I think if we all open our hearts and explore meditative practices, the phenomena seems to engage with us. But what does that mean? I don't know, but we should be looking there together. We should be bringing sensors. Maybe we don't need a masculine militaristic edge trying to control what is the next leap for humanity. Maybe we should take a different approach and ask the phenomena, what's going on here? And lastly, I'm launching the Telepathy Center, where I hope to bring together those on the concepts of spirituality, consciousness, as well as research, and put all of these different ingredients into the same chamber and see if we can rapidly scale together our understanding as well. I don't think we're just missing physics. I think there's a culmination of things all along the way that we need to begin taking a look at. And some of that's in ancient esoteric traditions. Some of that's in the religious frameworks. Some of that's in spirituality, and some of that's right here. We in the Western world need to take a different approach to how we look at this. And I challenge everyone, whether you're a legacy program member or not, to use your voice. Don't fall for the falling system, and get out there and make a difference. For those that have been looking at my history and asking some questions, I wanted to share a story. Someone asked me recently if I was actually an arborist or if that was some cover job. The truth is, I love trees, and I really was an arborist, a certified one, for many years. In fact, in consciousness research, there's so much gleaning of telepathy actually within fungal networks of trees. We should be looking there. We should be bringing scientists out to not only nature as we question the stars, but also our own hearts as we question our own spirits. I'll leave you with a picture of one of my favorite trees. Maybe you've seen it before.
So there's a lot to digest there. I know. For me, the parts that jumped out the most, I guess, are that he's part of this legacy program, allegedly, and that he went through hell. When I hear him talking about the experiences he had as a child, I immediately think about programs like MK Ultra, for example. They are very secretive, and this is arguably the darkest conversation that people don't want to have. And I get it. It is really, really dark because it involves children. But the other part that connects to this is that he met several nonverbal autistic children who were also part of these programs, and they suffered tremendous abuse. And this connects directly with what's happening with the telepathy tapes. Kai Dickens just came out with episode 1 of season 2, which talks about near-death experiences, about halfway through. But I think that this connects perfectly to Jordan's account and what he experienced. I think that this is very significant, and I think that this is going to more than likely challenge the understanding of what we know to be ESP, the phenomenon, religion, spirituality, consciousness, all of these topics that we kind of skim through them sometimes when it comes to ufology. I know that, and I'm guilty of this too. I know that we tend to try to move towards the nuts and bolts more often than not, because that's what this reality and this understanding of science helps us understand. But there are things that we can't understand. I've been in tables filled with scientists, friends of mine, who are trying to explain what consciousness is, and it always ends in a shouting match. Why do you think that is? So I am very glad that Martin is speaking up about this and that he's finally out talking about his experiences. I am hoping that we get more details on whatever he experienced so we can see if we can maybe help him or help each other in this journey and trying to understand what the fuck is going on. Like Terrence McKenna said, it is getting weirder and weirder.
It's only going to get weirder. The level of contradiction is going to rise excruciatingly, even beyond the excruciating present levels of contradiction. So I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. And at that point, novelty theory can come out of the woods, because eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's just too nuts. It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine, starvation, because the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed. The collapse of the socialist world, the rise of the internet, these are changes so immense, nobody could imagine them ever happening. And now that they have happened, nobody even bothers to mention what a big deal it is. The mushroom said to me once, it said, this is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time. This is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension. The entire destiny of all life on the planet is tied up in this. We are not acting for ourselves or from ourselves. We happen to be the point species on a transformation that will affect every living organism on this planet at its conclusion.
So let me know what you think in the comments about Jordan Jozak's full statement about his appearance in Skywatcher, about what he said about the nonverbal autistic children that he had experiences with, about the hell he went through, about what we have to learn, about the challenges we have as a society, as a civilization. Let me know what you think. I'll be reading. And thank you for sticking up with me. It's been hard, but thank you. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, hype, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us, and it is what helps us the most. So thank you. But if you want to support us in other ways, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Jordan Jozak, always. Thank you, Jordan. Talk to you later. Bye.